The strange encounter. The galaxy was wide, endless, and cold. For one man, it felt even colder because he carried no home, no family, and no place to belong. His name was Daniel, a traveler moving from one planet to another, never staying too long. He worked as a pilot, carrying goods between colonies, but when the work ended, silence was his only companion. That day, his ship landed on a small, green world at the edge of known space. It was not a famous planet, not rich or powerful, only a quiet place with villages and farms. Daniel stepped out of his ship, breathing the fresh air. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful for a man used to noise and engines. He walked along a dirt path, looking at the hills, the strange plants, and the simple homes made of stone and wood. Life here was slow, calm, but Daniel felt no connection. He was ready to buy supplies and leave. Then everything changed. From behind a tree, a small voice called out, "Hey, are you lonely?" Daniel froze. Slowly he turned, and there she was, a little alien girl. She was not human, but close. Her skin was pale blue, glowing softly under the sun. Her eyes were big, shining like two silver moons, and her hair was dark and flowing like night. She looked no older than 7 years. Daniel blinked, unsure if he heard right. "What did you say?" The girl walked closer. She did not look afraid, though he was a stranger. She looked straight into his eyes, innocent but serious. I asked, "Are you lonely?" She repeated. Her words struck him like lightning. He wanted to laugh, but something in her tone stopped him. She wasn't joking. She wasn't teasing. She was asking because she already knew. Daniel's throat felt dry. "Why would you ask me that?" The girl tilted her head, her silver eyes unblinking. Then she smiled, a soft, gentle smile. "Because if you are lonely, then marry my mom," she said. "She's kindest." Daniel almost stepped back. What kind of child says something like that to a stranger? His heart beat faster, not because of fear, but because of confusion. This was no ordinary meeting. He studied her. The girl's clothes were simple, made of rough fabric. Her feet were bare. Yet there was something otherworldly about her, as if she carried wisdom beyond her age. "Your mom?" Daniel asked carefully. "Yes." The girl nodded. "She is the kindest person in the world. She helps everyone, but she is sad too. If you marry her, you won't be lonely anymore, and she won't be sad anymore." Her words were so direct, so pure, that Daniel felt a strange ache in his chest. Nobody had spoken to him like that in years. Nobody had looked at him and seen his loneliness so clearly. For a long moment he could not speak. He only stared at the little girl, wondering who she was, what kind of mother she had, and why fate brought him here. The wind blew softly through the trees, but the silence between them grew heavy. Daniel finally cleared his throat. "Where is your mother now?" he asked. The girl's smile widened as if she was waiting for that question. She turned and pointed toward the distant hills. "Come with me. I'll show you." Something in her voice pulled him forward. He wanted to walk away, to return to his ship, but his feet moved on their own. Step by step, he followed the girl along the path. As they walked, Daniel noticed how quiet the village became. A few villagers stood outside their homes, staring at him. Their eyes were not friendly. They whispered to each other, their expressions tense, even fearful. Daniel frowned. Why would they look at him like that? He was just a traveler. Unless they weren't staring at him. They were staring at the little girl. The girl didn't seem to notice. She skipped ahead, humming a soft tune, like any normal child would. But Daniel felt the tension in the air grow thicker. Every villager who saw her turned away quickly, as if afraid to meet her gaze. He leaned closer to her and whispered, "Why do they look at you like that?" The girl stopped. For the first time, her smile faded. She looked down, her silver eyes dim. "Because they don't understand my mom," she said softly. "They say things about her. Bad things. But they're wrong. You'll see. She's really kind. She's the kindest. Then she looked up again, smiling brightly as if forcing away the sadness. Come, she'll be happy to meet you. Daniel followed, but unease crawled inside him. The way the villagers looked at the girl, it was not normal. It was fear, deep and sharp. And yet, he kept walking. Finally, they reached the edge of the village. Beyond the fields stood a small house, quiet and alone, with smoke rising from its chimney. The girl ran ahead, waving her hands. Mom! Mom! Look who I found! The door opened slowly, and then Daniel saw her. A woman stepped out, tall, graceful, and unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin glowed faintly like the girl's, but her eyes carried something deeper. They held kindness, yes, but also pain, and a secret he could not yet name. In that moment, Daniel understood one thing. His life was about to change forever. The mother's hidden world. Daniel stood frozen at the edge of the field. The woman before him was unlike anyone he had met across the stars. She was tall, her long dark hair flowing in the wind, and her pale blue skin shimmered like starlight. Her silver eyes, the same as the little girl's, looked at him with gentle calmness. The child rushed to her side, holding her hand tightly. Mom, this is the man I told you about. He's lonely. He can stay with us, right? The woman gave her daughter a tender smile before turning her gaze to Daniel. He expected suspicion, even anger. Instead, she bowed her head slightly, her voice soft and melodic. Welcome, traveler. My name is Alara. If you are hungry or tired, my home is open to you. Daniel shifted uneasily. He was used to strangers treating him like an outsider, not welcoming him so easily. You don't even know me, he said carefully. Alara's eyes met his, and for a moment he felt warmth, like standing near a fire after years in the cold. I don't need to know you, she said. I can see enough. Her words made his chest tighten. Did she see his loneliness too? The girl tugged Daniel's hand and pulled him toward the house. Come on, Mom makes the best food, you'll see. Reluctantly, he followed. Inside the house, the air was warm and smelled of herbs and wood smoke. The home was simple, with a small table, clay bowls, and shelves filled with dried plants. Alara moved gracefully, preparing food as the girl set plates with excitement. Daniel sat, his eyes scanning the room. Something felt different here. Not just the kindness of the woman, but something deeper. The walls seemed to hum faintly, like the house itself held a secret. As Alara placed a warm bowl in front of him, Daniel spoke. Your people, they don't look at you kindly. Why? The question made the air heavy. The girl froze, her silver eyes darting between her mother and Daniel. Ilara's hand stilled, then she sighed softly. They fear what they don't understand, she said. They whisper about me. Some call me cursed. Cursed? Daniel repeated. Alara met his gaze, again. Her eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. They believe I carry something dangerous inside me. Something that brings misfortune. But I only want to help. To heal. To give life. The more kindness I show, the more fear I receive in return. Her calm voice carried sadness that pierced Daniel's heart. He wanted to ask more, but the girl suddenly spoke up, her small voice strong. They're wrong. My mom is kindest. She saves people. She saved me. Alara gently placed a hand on her daughter's head, smiling faintly. Hush, child. Daniel leaned forward, curiosity burning inside him. Saved you? From what? The girl opened her mouth to answer, but Alara's sharp glance silenced her. Daniel noticed the tension and said nothing more, though his mind spun with questions. Later that evening, after the meal, Alara stepped outside to gather herbs. Daniel sat alone near the fire while the girl hummed softly, playing with a carved, wooden toy. He looked at her, then asked in a low voice, Why did you really bring me here? The girl stopped humming and stared at the fire. Her silver eyes reflected the flames. Then she turned to him and whispered, "Because you're different. You don't look at us with fear, you look with hope. My mom needs someone like you." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She bit her lip, then leaned closer. "There are people who want to hurt her. They say she is dangerous, but I know the truth. She is special. She carries light inside her. The villagers don't see it, but I do. And now, I think you do too." Her innocent words shook Daniel more than he expected. He had been drifting through life with no purpose, no family, and here was a child telling him he might have a reason to stay. But before he could reply, Alara returned, her arms filled with herbs. She looked at them with a soft smile, but Daniel noticed her eyes flicker with caution as if she sensed what had been said. Night fell, and Daniel was given a small bed near the fire. The house was quiet, yet outside he heard faint whispers. He rose silently and peeked through the window. In the shadows of the village, several men stood together, their faces grim. He could barely hear their words. "She should not be here," one said. "If we let her stay, misfortune will fall on all of us," another whispered. "We must drive her out. Or worse." Daniel's blood ran cold. They were speaking about Alara. He turned back inside where the woman slept peacefully beside her daughter. Their faces were calm, filled with innocence and trust. And yet outside, hatred gathered like a storm. For the first time in years, Daniel felt a pull inside him, the urge to protect. The next morning he awoke to the sound of birds singing. Alara greeted him with a gentle smile as if nothing was wrong. But Daniel couldn't forget the whispers of the night. He ate quietly, watching her, studying every movement. She was kind, yes, but she was also hiding something. Something the villagers feared. And as he looked at her glowing eyes and calm smile, one thought haunted him. What secret was Alara hiding that could make kindness look like a curse? A dangerous offer. The village looked peaceful under the morning sun, but Daniel carried the memory of last night's whispers like a heavy stone. He could not ignore them. The villagers wanted Alara gone. Some wanted her dead. Yet when he looked at her busy preparing food for her daughter, she seemed the last person who could harm anyone. Her gentle hands, her calm smile, everything about her spoke of kindness, not danger. The little girl noticed his silence. She leaned close and whispered, "You heard them, didn't you?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "The villagers?" She nodded slowly, silver eyes dim. "They hate my mom. They don't see what I see." Daniel exhaled. Why? Why do they fear her so much? Before the girl could answer, Alara placed a bowl of warm bread on the table. "Eat, both of you," she said softly, as though she hadn't heard their conversation. But her eyes lingered on Daniel, searching, almost warning him not to ask more. After breakfast, Alara asked Daniel to join her outside. They walked through the fields in silence until they reached the edge of the forest. Birds sang in the branches and sunlight fell in golden stripes through the leaves. Finally, Alara spoke. "You are not like the others. You don't look at me with fear." Daniel crossed his arms. "I don't believe in curses." A sad smile touched her lips. "And yet curses believe in us." Daniel frowned. "What does that mean?" Alara's expression turned distant, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "Long ago, something was placed inside me, a power or a burden. I never asked for it. I only wanted to live in peace. But this power makes people uneasy. They fear it even when I use it to heal." She looked at him then, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "If they knew you stayed in my house, they would fear you too. Maybe even turn against you." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Let them. I've been alone all my life. I don't care what people think." Her gaze softened, but there was sorrow in her smile. "You say that now. But loneliness makes men accept things they shouldn't." That night the tension grew thicker. Daniel lay, awake near the fire. The house was quiet, but his ears caught the faint sound of movement outside. Shadows flickered past the window. He rose silently and stepped out into the night air. A group of villagers stood near the edge of the field, torches in hand. Their faces were twisted with fear and anger. One of them spotted him and hissed, "Stranger, you should not be here. Leave before it's too late." Daniel stood his ground. "What do you want from her?" Another man stepped forward, voice low but sharp. "That woman is cursed. She brings misfortune wherever she goes. If you value your life, do not stay in her house." Daniel's fists clenched. "I saw her. She's done nothing but show kindness." "Kindness is a mask," the villager spat. "When the curse takes hold, she will destroy everything around her. If you stay, you will share her fate." Before Daniel could answer, the men vanished back into the shadows, leaving the night heavy with their threat. Inside, Alara was waiting. She had heard. "You should go," she whispered. Daniel stared at her, surprised. "Go? After what I just saw, they're planning something against you." Her eyes glistened in the firelight. "They will never accept me. And I cannot ask you to risk yourself for a stranger." Daniel shook his head. "You're not a stranger anymore. Not to me, and not to your daughter. She believes in you. That's enough for me." Alara's lips trembled as if she wanted to argue, but she stayed silent. The next day, while Alara gathered water, Daniel sat with the girl. She looked serious, far too serious for a child. "Will you protect her?" she asked suddenly. Daniel hesitated. "I'll try, but I don't even understand what's happening." The girl leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "Then I'll tell you. My mom, she carries light inside her. It can heal. It can save. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it can also destroy. That's why they fear her. That's why they whisper about curses. They don't understand her gift." Daniel stared at her. "And you want me to stay because you think I can help her?" She nodded. "Not just help her. Save her. If she uses too much of her power, it burns her life away. She needs someone to share the burden. Without that, she will die." Her words cut deep into Daniel's chest. He wanted to deny it, but he had seen the weariness in Alara's eyes, the sorrow behind her smile. "And you think that person is me?" he asked softly. The girl looked at him with unwavering certainty. "Yes. You're not afraid of her. You're the one." That night, as stars filled the sky, Daniel sat with Alara outside the house. The air was quiet, but heavy with unspoken truth. "Alara," he said carefully, "your daughter told me about your gift, about the burden it puts on you." Her breath caught. Slowly she turned to him, her silver eyes shimmering. "She should not have told you." "I needed to know," Daniel said, "because now I understand why she asked me to marry you." Alara froze. The night seemed to stop around them. "She told you that?" Daniel nodded. "She believes I can save you." Alara closed her eyes, pain crossing her face. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "If you bond with me, traveler, my power will become yours to carry too. You will never know peace again. You will be hunted. You will be cursed as I am." Her eyes opened, locking on his. "So I ask you, Daniel, will you still stay? Will you still take this dangerous offer?" The secret revealed. The night after Alara's words, Daniel could not sleep. Her question echoed in his mind. "Will you still take this dangerous offer?" He had no answer. He had spent years wandering, keeping away from ties, running from promises. Now fate asked him to bind his life to a woman he barely knew, to carry a burden that could kill them both. He sat near the fire, staring at the flames. The little girl slept peacefully beside her mother. Alara's face, calm even in sleep, looked both fragile and strong. Daniel wondered how many nights she had hidden pain behind that gentle smile. Outside, the wind carried strange sounds. Low hums, not of villagers but of engines, deep, steady, metallic. Daniel's instinct sharpened. That was no farm tool. That was a ship. He stood and went to the door, pushing it open slightly. Across the hills in the darkness, lights flickered. Not torches, blue beams, search beams, someone was here, and they weren't villagers. The next morning, Alara seemed tense. She moved quickly, gathering herbs and whispering warnings to her daughter. Daniel noticed her eyes flicking toward the horizon again and again. Finally, he asked, "You knew, didn't you, that someone was coming?" Alara froze. She looked at him for a long time before nodding slowly. "Yes, they've been looking for me. For years. The villagers only fear me. But these men, they want me captured. Or dead." Daniel's stomach tightened. "Who are they?" Ilara's voice lowered. "The Dominion. Soldiers of the Outer Empire. Long ago I refused them. They wanted me to use my power as a weapon, to burn worlds instead of heal them. When I denied them, they marked me. Since then, I have been hunted." Daniel's eyes widened. "So the curse. It isn't a curse, it's them." Alara shook her head softly. "It's both. My power, it is unstable. Too much of it tears my body apart. That is why I hide. That is why I stay away from others. If they take me, they will force me to unleash it. Thousands will die." Her daughter gripped her hand tightly. "No, Mom. You promised. You promised you'd never let them take you." Alara knelt and kissed her forehead. "I won't, little star. But we must be ready." Daniel felt the weight of her words. This was no village problem anymore. This was war creeping into a quiet world, and somehow he was caught in the middle. That night, the first attack came. Daniel woke to the sound of metal striking wood. Shouts filled the air, not the voices of villagers, but of soldiers barking orders. Outside, lights blazed, armored, men sweeping through the fields with glowing rifles. "Search every house," one shouted. "Bring her out alive." The little girl screamed as the door shook under heavy fists. Alara pulled her close, her eyes glowing brighter than ever before. "Daniel," she said urgently, "you must choose now. Leave and you will be safe. Stay, and you will share our fate." Daniel's heart pounded. He had run from choices all his life. But here, in this small house, two lives looked at him with trust. He clenched his fists. "I'm not leaving." Alara nodded once. Then she stood, her whole body trembling as light began to spill from her skin. Silver fire danced across her hands. The door burst open. 3 soldiers stormed inside, armored, faces hidden, their rifles pointed straight at Alara. "By order of the Dominion," one barked. "You are under arrest." Alara raised her hands. A wave of silver light burst forth, throwing the men against the walls. Their weapons cracked, sparking, useless. Daniel shielded his eyes. The glow was blinding, but behind it he saw her. No longer just a woman, but something greater, something powerful and terrifying. When the light faded, the soldiers lay unconscious, their armor scorched. Alara collapsed, to her knees panting. Blood trailed from her lips. The little girl rushed to her side. "Mom!" Daniel dropped beside her, holding her arm. Her body shook violently, as though the energy inside her was tearing her apart. "This is what I meant," she whispered hoarsely. "Every time I use my gift, it eats away at me. Soon, there will be nothing left." Daniel's throat tightened. "Then let me help you. Tell me what I have to do." Her silver eyes met his, burning with both pain and hope. "The bond, the one my daughter spoke of. If we share it, my power will spread between us. It will not kill me as fast, but it will. Tie your life to mine. You will be hunted forever." Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of the lonely years behind him of drifting between stars with no purpose. And now, this woman, this child, this strange, dangerous family, they needed him. He opened his mouth to answer, but a sudden roar outside shook the ground. Through the window, he saw it. A massive ship descending from the clouds, black and armored, its cannons glowing with deadly fire. The Dominion had brought more than soldiers. They had brought an army. Ilara clutched his hand, her voice breaking. Daniel, choose now. The battle begins. The ground shook as the Dominion warship lowered into the valley. Its engines roared like thunder, rattling the stones of Ilara's small house. Daniel felt the vibration deep in his chest, each pulse like a drum of war. The villagers screamed in the distance, rushing for cover. Some shouted warnings. Others begged the soldiers to leave their homes alone. But Daniel knew the Dominion wasn't here for the villagers. They were here for Ilara. Inside the house, the air was tense. Ilara stood weak, her skin still glowing, faintly from the last surge of power. Her daughter clung to her, trembling. Daniel gripped the broken rifle of one fallen soldier, checking its weight in his hands. He wasn't a soldier anymore. Not since the border wars years ago, but the fire in his chest told him he couldn't stand aside. "Stay behind me," he said, voice steady but hard. Ilara shook her head. "No, they want me, not you. If you stand in their way, they will kill you without hesitation." Daniel turned, his jaw tight. "I've spent my life running from everything, not anymore." Her eyes softened, silver tears forming. For the first time, she didn't argue. The first wave of Dominion troops approached, their boots pounding the ground in rhythm. Armored, faceless, they looked more like machines than men. Blue searchlights cut across the fields as their commander shouted, "Surround the house! Bring the woman out alive." Daniel raised the rifle, aiming through the cracked window. His hands were steady, his breath controlled. When the first soldier stepped too close, he fired. The blast cracked against the soldier's chest plate, sending him crashing into the dirt. The others roared, returning fire. Bolts of plasma smashed into the walls, spraying wood and stone. The little girl screamed, but Daniel stood his ground, firing back. "Ilara," he shouted. "Can you fight?" Her silver eyes glowed faintly. "Yes, but every strike takes from me." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Then save it for when it matters." The soldiers charged. Daniel kicked open the door and fired again, cutting one down. Another rushed him with a blade, but Daniel swung the broken rifle like a club, knocking the soldier back. Behind him, Ilara raised her hands. Light burst from her palms, a wave of silver energy that rippled across the field. The soldiers staggered, blinded, their weapons sparking. Some fell, clutching their helmets, but when the light faded, Ilara collapsed to her knees, coughing blood. Daniel dropped beside her. "You're killing yourself." She grabbed his arm, her touch burning like fire. "I told you, without a bond, my power consumes me." Her daughter cried, pulling at Daniel's sleeve. "Please, you have to help her. If you don't, she'll die." Daniel's mind raced. He barely understood what this bond meant, but he saw the truth in Ilara's fading strength. If he didn't act, the next burst of power might be her last. The roar of engines grew louder. Daniel looked up. The warship's cannons glowed, preparing to fire. The ground lit blue beneath its shadow. One blast from those guns and the entire village would burn. The Dominion commander raised his voice through a speaker. "Ilara of the Silver Light, surrender now, or we will reduce this village to ash." The villagers screamed in terror, some running into the fields, others falling to their knees. Daniel's blood boiled. The Dominion didn't care about innocence, about lives. They only cared about control. Ilara tried to rise, but her legs buckled. Daniel caught her in his arms. Her silver eyes looked into his, filled with both pain and desperate hope. "Daniel," she whispered, "I can stop them, but only if you accept the bond." He swallowed hard. "What happens if I do?" Her voice shook. "You will carry my curse. My enemies will become your enemies. Your life will never be free again." Daniel looked at her daughter. Small, frightened, but brave enough to hold her mother's hand. He thought of his empty years, drifting through space with no one to care for, no one to care for him. And here was a family, fragile but real, standing before him. "I've been running for my life long enough," he said quietly. "If this bond means I can stand with you, then I accept." Ilara's eyes widened. Tears rolled down her glowing cheeks. She pressed her forehead against his, whispering ancient words in a language he didn't know. Suddenly, silver light surged between them, wrapping around their bodies like fire. Daniel gasped as warmth flooded his veins. Energy rushed into him, not painful but heavy, as if he was carrying a star inside. His vision blurred, then cleared, and when he looked down, his hands glowed faintly with silver fire. The bond was complete. Ilara exhaled, her strength returning, her glow steadier. She no longer looked broken. She looked whole. Together, their power pulsed like two hearts beating as one. The warship's cannon fired. Daniel reacted without thinking. Raising his hand, he willed the energy forward. A massive silver shield burst into the sky, catching the blast. The ground shook, but the village stood untouched. The villagers gasped. The Dominion soldiers froze, staring in disbelief. Ilara rose beside him, her voice fierce and strong. "We are not yours to take," the Dominion commander growled. "Then, you will die together." More soldiers poured from the warship, hundreds of them, their rifles raised. The valley filled with the sound of war. Daniel tightened his grip on the glowing rifle. His blood burned with new fire. For the first time in years, he wasn't just a wanderer. He was something more. He looked at Ilara and whispered, "Then let's show them what we can do." And together they charged into the storm. The choice of the heart. The battlefield glowed with silver light and burning fire. Smoke curled above the valley as the Dominion army advanced. Hundreds of armored soldiers surrounded the village, rifles raised, eyes locked on their prize. Daniel and Ilara stood side by side, their bond still fresh, their bodies glowing with shared power. The little girl clung to Daniel's arm, her silver eyes wide with both fear and trust. Daniel's chest burned with energy, every breath heavy with fire. He had never felt so alive or so afraid. He looked at his hands glowing faintly with Ilara's light and realized he was no longer only himself. He was tied to her. Every heartbeat of hers echoed in him. Every wound she felt, he would feel too. "Daniel," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling but strong. "The bond is dangerous. If you push too far, the power will consume you." Daniel gave a grim smile. "Then we burn together." The Dominion commander's voice boomed across the field. "You cannot resist the Dominion. Surrender, and we will spare the village. Fight, and everyone here dies." Daniel's fists tightened. The commander's words were poison, tempting him to abandon the fight. But when he looked at the villagers, cowering in fear, hiding behind broken walls, he saw the truth. They hated Ilara before, but now their lives depended on her. On him. He stepped forward, his voice carrying across the valley. "You want her? You'll have to go through me first." The soldiers roared and opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through the air. Daniel raised his hand and silver shields flared to life, deflecting the blasts. Ilara stood beside him, her own hands glowing, sending waves of healing light that kept the shields strong. The villagers gasped in awe. For the first time, they didn't see a curse. They saw protection. But the power came with pain. With every shield Daniel raised, his chest tightened, his blood burning hotter. His muscles trembled, sweat dripping down his face. The bond gave him strength, but it also drained him. Ilara touched his arm, her silver eyes filled with worry. "Stop. You'll tear yourself apart." Daniel gritted his teeth. "I can't stop. If I let go, they'll kill you. They'll kill her." He looked at the little girl hiding behind them, tears on her cheeks. "I won't let that happen." Ilara's lips trembled. She had lived so long protecting everyone else, never asking for help. Now this man, this stranger, was willing to destroy himself for her. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why would you risk everything for us?" His answer was simple. "Because I finally have something worth dying for." The Dominion soldiers pressed harder. Explosions lit the night as grenades tore through the fields. Daniel and Ilara fought back, their power surging together. He swung his glowing fists, sending blasts of silver energy that knocked soldiers off their feet. Ilara raised her hands, creating walls of light to block enemy fire. But for every soldier they defeated, more came. The warship above glowed brighter, its cannons charging for another devastating shot. Daniel's strength wavered. His knees shook. His vision blurred. He felt Alara's pain through the bond, her heart struggling, her body weakening. They were burning too fast. The little girl screamed, "Don't stop! Please don't stop!" Her voice cut through Daniel like a blade. He forced himself to stand taller even as his body begged to fall. He roared and pushed the power harder, blasting a wave of silver fire that scattered the soldiers. The ground split with the force. Villagers cried out. Even Alara gasped at the raw strength flowing through him. But when the light faded, Daniel fell to one knee, clutching his chest. His breath came ragged. His skin glowed too bright, veins of silver spreading across his arms like cracks in glass. Alara dropped beside him, holding his face in her trembling hands. "You're burning yourself away. Stop before the bond kills you." Daniel looked at her through blurred vision, his lips forming a weak smile. "If this is the price, then I'll pay it." Her tears fell onto his glowing skin. "No, I can't. Lose you, not now." Above them, the warship's cannon finished charging. A massive ball of blue energy swelled at its tip, ready to obliterate everything. The Dominion commander shouted, "End them!" Alara's heart raced. She knew she could unleash her full power to stop the cannon, but it would destroy her body completely. Daniel knew it too. He could feel her fear through the bond. He grabbed her hand tightly, forcing his voice through. The pain. "Don't do it. Don't throw your life away. We do this together or not at all." The little girl sobbed, clinging to them both. "Don't leave me. Please don't leave me alone." Time seemed to freeze. The cannon glowed brighter, seconds away from firing. Daniel felt the bond pulling, demanding a choice. Either surrender or push beyond the limit and risk burning his life out. Alara stared into his eyes, silver fire reflecting in her tears. "Daniel, if we push one more time, there may be no coming back." Daniel squeezed her hand, his voice a whisper meant, "Only for her. Then let's make it count." Together they rose, light blazing around them. Silver fire roared like a star, wrapping their bodies in a storm of energy. The villagers shielded their eyes. Soldiers stumbled back in fear. The Dominion cannon fired, a giant beam of destruction rushing toward them. Daniel and Alara screamed as one, unleashing their combined power to meet it head-on. The valley exploded in blinding light. The new family. The new beginning. The valley glowed like a second sunrise. Silver light clashed with the blue fire of the Dominion cannon. The blast shook the earth, split the sky, and sent shockwaves racing across the fields. Villagers screamed and fell to the ground, covering their faces. Soldiers staggered back, blinded by the blinding storm. At the center stood Daniel and Alara, their hands locked, their bodies wrapped in living light. The bond between them pulsed like a single heart. Together, their voices rose in a cry that cut through the roar of destruction. For a moment, it seemed the beam would swallow them whole. The Dominion cannon blazed, pouring its endless power down on them. But Daniel and Alara held the line. Inch by inch, their silver fire pushed back. Then, with one final surge, the cannon's energy cracked, splintered, and shattered into sparks that rained harmlessly across the sky. The battlefield went silent. Smoke drifted through the air. The Dominion soldiers lowered their weapons, eyes wide in disbelief. Their mighty cannon, their greatest weapon, had failed. Daniel swayed on his feet, every muscle trembling, his chest burning with the weight of the bond. Alara supported him, her silver eyes glowing steady now, her strength renewed. She too felt the cost, but for the first time she wasn't alone in carrying it. The Dominion commander snarled, his voice breaking. "This isn't possible. No one can resist the Dominion." Daniel lifted his head, his eyes burning with silver fire. His voice was hoarse but strong. "You were wrong. Power isn't yours to take. It belongs to those who fight to protect, not destroy." His words carried across the valley like thunder. The soldiers hesitated. Some dropped their weapons, others retreated into the warship. The commander cursed and shouted orders, but fear had already broken their ranks. Within minutes, the Dominion forces pulled back, their engines roaring as the warship lifted away into the clouds. The invincible Dominion had been defeated by two people standing together. The villagers stepped out from their hiding places. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide. They had once whispered that Alara was cursed. They had feared her, shunned her. But now they had seen the truth with their own eyes. An old woman fell to her knees, weeping. "Forgive us. Forgive us for our blindness." Others bowed their heads, murmuring prayers of thanks. Some even rushed forward, offering food, blankets, anything to help. Alara stood tall, her hand still holding Daniel's. Her face was tired but radiant, glowing with quiet dignity. She looked at the villagers, not with anger, but with compassion. "I never wish to harm you," she said softly. "I only wish to live in peace. I will not ask for your trust, but I will continue to protect you as long as I live." The villagers lowered their heads in shame. For the first time, they truly saw her, not as a curse, but as a guardian. Later that night, the village gathered around a great fire. The people shared food, songs, and stories, their fear slowly giving way to hope. Children laughed again, and the stars above seemed brighter. Daniel sat near the fire, his body still aching from the bond. The little girl curled up beside him, resting her head on his arm. He looked down at her, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You're not afraid of me?" he asked. She shook her head, eyes half closed. "No, you're part of us now." Her simple words warmed him more than the fire ever could. For years he had been a wanderer with no family, no place to belong. Now, in this small house on this quiet world, he had found something greater than he had ever dreamed. Alara sat across from him, her eyes meeting his. There was gratitude in her gaze, but also something deeper, trust, and the spark of something that might one day become love. "You should rest," she said gently. Daniel chuckled weakly. "If I close my eyes, I might not wake up." She shook her head, smiling faintly. "You will, because we'll be here to wake you." When the fire burned low and the villagers returned to their homes, Daniel stepped outside. The night was calm, the air cool. He looked up at the stars, once symbols of loneliness, now a promise of new beginnings. Alara joined him, her daughter asleep in her arms. For a while they stood in silence, watching the heavens. Finally, Alara spoke. "The Dominion will return. They never stop." Daniel nodded. "Then let them come. They won't take you. Not while I still breathe." Her eyes glistened in the starlight. "Why would you give so much, Daniel? Why would you tie your life to mine?" He looked at her, his voice steady. "Because you're not cursed. You're hope, and hope deserves someone willing to fight for it." She lowered her gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks. Slowly, she leaned her head against his shoulder. Daniel placed an arm around her, holding her close. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a wanderer. He felt like a protector, a father, a partner. As dawn broke over the horizon, the little girl stirred awake. She stretched and smiled sleepily. "See, Daniel? I told you. My mom is the kindest." Daniel laughed softly, the sound light and free. "Yes," he said, pulling them both closer. "And now, she's mine to protect." The sun rose, bathing the village in gold. Smoke from the battle faded, and new light filled the sky. In that moment, Daniel knew. His old life was gone. He had a new path now, not as a wanderer, but as part of a family. The human who had once been alone now stood at the beginning of something greater than himself. A new family, a new hope, a new beginning.